All right guys, so if you've never seen the front of your van with your wheels off, this is what it's going to look like. Don't be intimidated. It's only really a few bolts here to take this whole front end apart. Really the easiest way to start doing this is we're going to take the sway bar off. Once the sway bar is out of the way, this will allow this to move. That's going to be two 15mm bolts. You can pull it out on both sides, and then the sway bar is just going to pop out of the middle. The next thing that you're going to want to do is you can make something like this if you want. Basically, we just use this. We'll hang it up here. And that way, once we take the steering knuckle off, you can kind of just hang it there. I'll show you the easiest way to get these off. Sometimes these can be difficult to get off. You don't have to necessarily use a pickle fork. If you do, sometimes you'll tear the bushing. So I'll go in that and show you how to take this apart. The next step, we're going to undo the brake caliper here, and we're going to just take the brake caliper and kind of get it out of the way. That way we're just getting to the core of the suspension. It'll allow us then to pull the shock off. And then the coil. And you kind of want to do it in that order just to make it easier. You'll have a difficult time getting the coil off. Sometimes if you don't pull the shock off, the shock kind of limits it. But so that's kind of just, in a nutshell what we're going to start with doing. So now let me go ahead. I'm going to show you how to do that and some tricks to getting some of these parts loose, because some of your vans are old and they've been through the weather and never been taken apart. So let's get busy. So there's a cotter pin in the bottom of the steering, which basically doesn't allow the steering to come undone. With these older vans, you can see that, particularly have been, in the weather, these beams are really rusted. Some of the components that have never been switched out, they'll just kind of get rusted or stuck in there. So you're always fighting something in order to get it to come out. One side came out really easy. Next, what I'm going to do is I'm going to come in here. I'm going to take out this bolt, which is your eccentric bolt. So this is the primary bolt that's going to allow you to, give your vehicle the alignment. You always hear people saying you need to change the cams or the eccentrics. This is going to be the stock eccentric that's going to come in here. You can buy these in different degrees, and what that's going to allow you to do is adjust the camber and the caster of your vehicle. So next, I'm going to go ahead and take this apart, and I'm going to take the bottom bolt apart. The biggest thing is when you take this bolt apart, you want to leave a couple threads on it, because similar to the steering, how I just kind of tapped on it in order to get it to come out, you're going to do the same thing on here, but if you take the bolt all the way off, this whole piece is going to drop, potentially dropping on your foot, which you definitely don't want. So let's make sure you don't do that. So let's go ahead and I'm going to take all this apart for you and show you the next step. So right here, I'm taking the brake calipers off the vehicle. We're just going to take these, like I was saying, we're just going to hang them out of the way over on that hook. That way I'm going to be able to drop the spindle, and I'm not going to take all the wheel bearings, all this stuff apart. So I've almost got the eccentric all the way out. You can see on here, so if I take this bolt, you can see it's almost all the way off. Go ahead and put it on a few turns. And that's just your safety. You don't want to smash your feet or your fingers. You can see with this setup here, you have plenty of slack in here. The stock brake lines will totally accommodate the new lift kit, and you will not have to replace any of these brake lines. The reason we take these off and just hanging them on the frame is that way you don't have to bleed your brakes. You're not getting into that. It kind of keeps it as like a one-man person can do this if necessary. If you pull the brake lines off, then you're going to probably need assistance and help bleeding the brakes once it's all done. right, so there it is. So once you have this apart, you can see that this is actually the bolt. This is really important right here. This is the bolt for the passenger side I-beam. You can see the nut is on this side. It's on the front side of the van, facing the steering. When you take this apart and put it back together, make sure that it is the same way, because if it is not, just this additional mount right here could hit the I-beam when the I-beam is moving up and down, because you have that additional length. When we put this kit on, the new kit on, we're actually going to take this beam, and you can see I'm just going to lift it up. You can see right there you have almost an inch. And what we're going to do is we're going to shrink that down to about 1/4 of an inch. What that's going to do is it's going to bring your whole wheel forward and keep your wheel, like you can see here, that your wheel is wanting to rub on the back part of your wheel well. And so by cheating it forward, we're giving you more room here in order to run the bigger tires. So it's little things like that that we're doing to try to help you to run the biggest tire possible. So now that we've gotten everything kind of taken off, we've got it hung out of the way, your steering, your brakes, your spindles. We're going to go ahead and separate the I-beam from the radius arm. So for this, you're going to need a 30mm socket for the bottom and a 21 for the top. This bolt's going to come off. I have a jack set under there, just kind of holding. Okay. And there it is, one I-beam. So next what I'm going to do is I'm going to go ahead and take the radius arm off. That's going to be an 1.1/8" socket or wrench. A little bit easier to use a socket on the back side. So, all right, and there's the other I-beam coming out. And there it is, so your stock radius arm. So a big thing about this kit is people always ask is, what's the difference? So now if we take one of our Weldtec Designs custom fabricated radius arm and you put it up to the stock one, you can see the difference between the two arms. The benefit of having an arm that's so much longer, so you can see this arm's about 10 inches longer. The benefit of having this is going to be that your wheel is going to have less caster change as your wheel cycles up and down. And so now what we're going to do is we're going to go ahead and start cleaning the frame now that we have all of the stock components off, and we're going to get ready to go ahead and put our radius arm brackets on. So what we have is the driver's side radius arm and bracket setup, along with the new Moog bushing kit that you're going to get in the Weldtec Designs Baja grocery getter kit. So this is the order in which you're going to want to put it together. And normally what we recommend doing is putting it all together before you actually put it on the vehicle. So what you're going to do first is you're going to put the sleeve on, and then you're going to put the washer on. What this sleeve does is it allows you to not over tighten your bushing and truss your bushings, because if you do that, what it does is it actually pulls the wheel back in the wheel well. So everything that we're going to try to do, you would work against it. So that basically is a crush sleeve that allows you to tighten it. Then you're going to put on the big round bushing, put this bushing on, you'll feel it go in there. Then you're going to take your radius arm with the lip on it going forward. That's going to go in next. So you're going to take with a concave part of it, that's going to go on towards the front of the vehicle. And you're going to feel it get tight going over that crush sleeve. So then you can take the last washer, and then you're also going to have a lock nut. Sometimes what I'll do is I'll take that and put it on last. And then what I'll do is I'll tighten this all the way tight. So this is going to be an 1.1/8" socket or wrench. You're going to go ahead and want to just snug this whole assembly tight. Now you can do it with a wrench, or you can do it with an impact. You just want to make sure that you're not over tightening this whole setup. We just want to show you that you can totally do this in your driveway, in your garage. We're not using any tools that are out of the ordinary. Yes, we're using an impact. Most of you guys are going to have air. If you don't, then it's not a problem to do it without it. We're just using a standard floor jack. You can see on the front of this, we're just using 2 jack stands to hold up the whole front of the van. Another key point, make sure you chalk the back tires. Safety-wise goes. But we're trying to keep it really simple to show you that, anybody can do this with a very small amount of tools and a little bit of knowledge. Hopefully the help of this video, our directions that we give you with the Baja Grocery Getter Kit, that you'll feel comfortable installing this kit in your garage. So here, I'm just getting this thing, almost snugged up. And you can see, the biggest thing you'll see right here is in the back part of this, you'll see that concave part starting to go in there into the front bushing itself. And that's what you want, but I still haven't got to the point where the crush sleeve is where I'm hitting it. So I can go just I can keep going a little bit more. So right there, I can feel it. So now my bolt is push this washer all the way against that crush sleeve. So now I know everything is good and tight. I haven't over tightened anything. So it's really making it simple for you. You're like, you get worried, oh, did I tighten it enough? Did I not tighten it enough? And keep in mind, this is just for the primary installation of this component. Once we get it all installed, we'll go ahead and take this off. We'll put Loctite on it and then go ahead and put a lock washer on it to make sure that everything is securely in place when we do the final assembly. Now that I've gotten one done, you can also see that I've taken the grinder, I've cleaned up around the frame or the bracket where I'm going to be welding it to the frame. So now I'm going to go ahead and repeat the same step for the driver's side. Can't get an impact in here, so no matter what, you're going to be stuck, using, just a ratchet and a wrench. It's a 15 millimeter, and you're just going to take these off, and these are no longer needed. You can recycle them, do whatever you want. 1, 2, 3. And this you can put in a separate pile if you want. None of this stuff will be going back on. So right now, this is a good time. You have all of your suspension components off. If you wanted to go through it and, some people want to, paint, dress up their frame, now's a good time to do it before you start putting any of our new Baja Grocery Getter Kit parts on there. Right now I emphasize like, hey, if you want to start doing it, go ahead, paint your frame, paint your coil bucket, get crazy. So now we're going to start installing this new Weldtec Designs Baja Grocery Getter Kit that we have everything apart. If you weren't paying attention when you took off your I-beams, no problem, don't worry. It's easy to tell which one goes on which size. You can always look at this. This is going to point forward. So as you can tell, this is going to be, it's going to mount on the passenger side and go towards the driver's side. And your big beam, these beams are not the same length. So your larger beam right here, this is actually your passenger side beam that's going to bolt up on the driver's side beam. So once I go ahead and slide that up, I'm just going to take the bolt, making sure that it goes from the back towards the front. And you can just kind of wiggle it around. You can see it fairly easy goes into place. So now I'm going to go ahead and repeat that with the other side. Here is we're going to locate the new radius arm bracket mount. So what I'll do is I'll just take a tape measure and I'll hang it on the front of that. I'm going to come back 9 3/4, and this will give me an initial mark. So what I'm going to do then is I'm just going to come in here, I'm going to clean up all this frame right here where the new radius arm bracket is going to get mounted. I'll come back and I'll draw a really good line. I'll make a square line. That's where the front of the radius arm bracket is going to go. So next step is I'm just going to clean the frame right here. So that's going to be where the front of our bracket's going to be. You can see we cleaned off all the frame really nice, so that way it'll give you a nice spot to weld your new bracket to. So next step is we're going to bolt the radius arm onto the I-beam, and we're going to go ahead and set it up on here, and we'll clamp the I-beam or the radius arm bracket to the frame and get it in the spot that we want. So what I'll do is I'll take the I-beam now that this is the new bent I-beam that comes with the Baja Grocery Getter Kit. We'll go ahead and take this, put this on a on a jack stand just to kind of support it. It'll help, you know, put the new radius arm in place. You want to make sure that you put it all back together the same way. So now what we're going to do is we're going to go ahead and put our radius arm onto the I-beam. We're going to take it the same way, dropping it through. So it just makes it a little bit easier. So what I could do is I can lift the I-beam up, because what I'm doing is I'm fighting the bushings right now. So if I go ahead and lift up the front I-beam to keep this straighter coming all the way through, then I'll fight it a lot less. So what I'll do is I'll just kind of bring this up a little bit. And really what I'm trying to do is, you can see my mark right here. I want to get my bracket on that mount. So you can do one of two things. You can just kind of slide the jack forward. You can come back here and just tap it, or I'll even use my foot and get that to go in. Then once I get it to a spot pretty close, I'll go ahead and clamp it and fine tune it and remeasure it. So you can see I kind of just will play with the jack, let it down a little bit, let the clamp loose until I get it to the mark. Then what I can do is I can come back in here, take a tape measure, and measure up to there, and you can see I'm on my 9 3/4 mark. So the bracket, that bracket right there, is going to be good in place right there. So this is your ABS sensor. Basically this goes right there. Once you go ahead and pull your front suspension apart, you can just pull this little piece here. Then you can take your whole spindle, everything, and just totally get it out of the way. So then you just have your caliper sitting here. All right guys, so now what we've done is we've got the I-beams, the new Baja Grocery Getter kit I-beams on. We have our new Weldtec Designs extended radius arms on, and our brackets, and we have those clamped in place. So now what I'm going to do is I'm going to go ahead and weld the brackets in place to the frame. People say, well, I want to be able to put this kit on, but I don't have access to a welder. What can I do? Well, you could take it to a weld shop, have the brackets welded on, take it back to your house, and then fully assemble, disassemble and assemble the kit. So if you don't have a welder, if you don't know how to weld, you're not totally, you're not limited by that. There's ways around it that we can really, work with you and help you get everything you need. So now on to putting on, we're gonna go ahead and start putting on the shocks and the coils, and this kit will really start taking shape, and you'll get to see, really what it's all starting to come together really nice. So basically we're just gonna take it and kind of soak the threads in WD-40. It's not a bad idea. You can actually take the nut too and just go ahead and squirt some in there just to kind of help lubricate everything when it all goes together. This front end was especially, there was a lot of rust on these parts, so you can just see it'll all help it go together nice and smooth. So next we kind of have a thing of beauty here is our Fox 2.0 shocks. These Fox are just specifically valved for vans by Agile Off-Road, and they just work phenomenally well. Here what we're going to do is we're going to actually take the shock and we're going to put it up on the top, put it in, put the bushings on it, and we'll actually put a wrench on the top nut and twist the shock in order to get it tight. That way you're not getting like 1/8 of a turn each time. You're kind of sticking your hand up through the top. You can see I'm just spinning the shock in order to get that nut stuck. Now once I got it snug, what I'll do is I'll go ahead and put a wrench up on the top of the shock, and I'll do the same thing. I'll just keep spinning it until I get the shock all the way tight. You can see, you'll be able to kind of see through there too. See that you have a full nut because the bushings are slightly compressed. So just like when taking everything apart, same way, going back together, you'll take, usually your brakes, you get one bolt started, and then you can Just get the thread started on it. Tap the bottom into place. And then we'll come back and hit it with a wrench and go ahead and tighten it all up. So we've got almost the whole kit put back on now. We're still going to go through. We're going to make sure that all of our bolts are going to be tight, you know, double check everything. We're going to put a new eccentric in here, and then once we're done, we'll go ahead and just slightly lift up the vehicle, and then we can set the bottom of the shock, and we'll go ahead and put that in. Gotta make sure you line it up, get the new cotter pin in. A little bit more. So what we're going to do now, like we talked about earlier, is we're going to go ahead and apply Loctite to the threads of the radius arm pivot bolt. And then we're going to go ahead and put a lock washer on. And we're going to go ahead and tighten that up. There we go, nice and tight. We started off with just a 2-degree eccentric we put in here. This will allow us to adjust the camber and the caster as we'd like. The next thing we did is we went ahead and loosened these up. We're going to go ahead and turn these in just a little bit to correct the steering. Tornillos. So you can see with the stock suspension and these 265 tires, you were getting rubbing up here. Someone attempted to cut away the plastic but left the metal here. So what we're going to do is we're just going to go ahead and finish this off. We're going to clean up this corner and cut away this little fender here of the stock bumper, just to, you know, make it look better. And the whole point of it is if the tire were to come up and you were turned, you could catch this edge and, you know, potentially damage your tire. So we're just going to go ahead and get rid of it.